When the HOA president showed up at my front door demanding to see my lease, I almost laughed, right up until I realized she was dead serious and trying to bully me using rules she didn't even understand. I've owned my property in this neighborhood for more than 10 years. On my lot sits a small duplex that I rent out, fully complying with HOA rules, local ordinances, and every standard landlord requirement. My tenants are quiet, respectful, pay on time, and cause absolutely no problems. Everything is clean, legal, and documented. That's why it felt surreal when HOA Karen, our president, appeared one afternoon clutching a clipboard and a printed notice like she was serving papers. "I need to see your lease," she said flatly, her tone sharp and accusatory. I blinked at her. "Excuse me, my records show you're renting this property," she replied. "I need a copy of your lease agreement. HOA rules require me to verify tenants and occupancy." I took a slow breath. I am the landlord. I own this property. I don't have a lease with myself, and my tenant's lease is private. I'm legally prohibited from sharing it with you. She smirked, completely unfazed. The HOA has the right to enforce community rules. You're required to provide it. I calmly explained that under state law and our own HOA bylaws, she had zero authority to demand private contracts between landlords and tenants. The HOA could verify occupancy for compliance purposes, like ensuring no unit exceeded the allowed number of residents, but it had no right to inspect confidential lease terms. Karen wasn't listening. She doubled down, warning that failure to comply would result in fines, violations, and possible legal action. She even threatened to place a lien on my property, an entirely baseless and illegal threat. I asked her politely if she had actually checked the ownership records. "Yes," she said, "but I want the lease to make sure you're not violating HOA restrictions." I laughed. "Karen," I said, "you're renting your own house. Who exactly do you think has authority over whom? You don't even own the property you live in. You're a tenant here." Her eyes narrowed and her expression hardened. "That doesn't matter," she snapped. "I have authority and I will enforce compliance." That was the moment I decided to escalate. I documented everything. Photos of her visit, copies of her letters, emails, and audio recordings of our conversations. I submitted formal complaints to the HOA board citing specific bylaw violations, harassment, overreach, and violations of state privacy laws. Karen responded by email, claiming she was protecting the neighborhood and arguing that tenants could hide illegal activity without HOA oversight. I replied by quoting the bylaws directly. Reasonable verification only, never access to private contracts. A few weeks later, the board called an emergency meeting. I came prepared. I brought ownership records, state statutes, HOA bylaws, and redacted tenant privacy agreements to protect personal information. I laid everything out step by step, explaining why Karen's demands were unlawful, how she had exceeded her authority, and how her actions exposed the HOA itself to liability. Other residents began speaking up. Many had their own stories, warning letters over trivial landscaping issues, complaints about holiday decorations, demands for personal documents. Karen's behavior wasn't new. No one had challenged it until now. The board reviewed the evidence and asked Karen to justify her actions. She stumbled through vague explanations, insisted she was acting in good faith, and claimed her role as president gave her authority. The board wasn't convinced. After hours of discussion, Karen was formally reprimanded. She was stripped of any role in enforcing occupancy or tenant-related matters. Her access to sensitive HOA records was restricted, and a written warning was placed in the official HOA file. She was reminded very clearly that landlords have rights under state law and tenant lease information cannot be disclosed without legal cause. The consequences didn't stop there. Residents who had received questionable demands began requesting audits of HOA enforcement practices. A clear pattern of harassment emerged. The board implemented transparency measures, requiring dual signatures on enforcement letters and creating a review committee for any tenant-related inquiries. I went back to my normal life as a landlord. My tenants never even knew how close we came to being dragged into a legal scrutiny. Karen's threats vanished. Her authority evaporated, and the HOA finally started functioning the way it was supposed to, fairly, legally, and without intimidation. The most ironic part was simple. Karen had demanded a lease from the actual property owner, while she herself was renting. Every attempt to flex her power backfired completely. It was embarrassing for her, reassuring for community, and a reminder of an important lesson. Authority is not permission to break the law. Documentation, knowledge of your rights, and calm escalation can dismantle even the most arrogant overreach. Karen tried intimidation, but facts and law won. And sometimes all you have to do is point out the obvious. She was renting and I wasn't. Drop a comment, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe.